Good morning.
Good morning.
We're back. It's September.
I'm not Bobby.
Yeah.
So apologies for that.
Very nice to be back. This actually is our third attempt at the video. We made two very disastrous, hysterical attempts last night where we realised that we maybe left it a bit late. We did a very long session and we could barely string a sentence together. But we might possibly see if we can put a blooper reel up, yeah. So here we are, sharing music, and we kicked off by a record in memoriam of Chaz Hodges, who is one half of the UK music institution that is Chaz and Dave, who probably, if you're not from the UK, you would have absolutely no idea who they are. They're very just part of UK culture, really, and very much sort of epitomise a kind of down behind the old Joanna piano, singing some songs down the pub, I guess, really. Anyway, they also happen to be session musicians in the 70s and feature on this Labi Siffre album that got re-released on Mr. Bongo a couple of years back. It's called Remember My Name, and we listened to the track called I Got Tha, which has got a kind of who's who of UK session musicians on, and also was the source sample for Eminem's My Name Is, and it's a great track.
Definitely. I think Chaz and Dave were always a bit more interesting than they came across as a novelty act.
They did. They could play.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So keeping up with my tradition of having the worst covers in the world, this one is a real stinker.
I think you need to take it even a bit closer, John. I think we really need to get the
absorb
detail of
the whole
that suit.
That suit, yeah. Ahmed Jamal not looking very dignified at all, actually, for such a dignified man. But this is a very nice album called Stepping Out with a Dream, which came out in the mid-70s when he did a run of records on 20th Century, which are quite hard to find these days, actually. And this was actually his working band with Ahmed on electric piano on the track I played, Calvin Keyes on guitar. He's a great guitarist. Did stuff on black jazz. John Hurd and Frank Gant, and I played the track Tucson off here, which is a kind of groovy, kind of mid-tempo electric piano.
Yeah, really nice, very roadsy.
Can't really get off with Ahmed.
No. Then from a slightly earlier time period, I think 1973. This album, this feels very Groundhog Day. I've done this,
we've done this
three
before.
times. Bobby Rodriguez, trumpet player. An album that I think was a private press, has just been put out by a UK label called the Jazz Detectives. Very nice pressing, nice thick card, 180 gram vinyl. Sounds really, really nice. Has a fantastic drum performance actually throughout from Ndugu, and we listened to the first track, which takes up the whole of side one, which is the title of the album, simply Macrame, whatever the pronunciation is, a sort of more Latin tinged version of something that sounds extremely like Little Sunflower.
Very much like it.
Yeah, it's a limited edition and there's only 1,000, so search it out if you're interested.
This is where the video fell apart the last time. But this is a lot of talk at the moment about kind of spiritual jazz, and there's a lot of stuff which has got that kind of sound to it. Not a lot of it has the kind of intensity of particularly this kind of period of McCoy Tyner. This is from Atlantis, which is I think from 73 or 74. Live album with Azar Lawrence, saxophone player, Junie Booth on bass, Wilby Fletcher, who went off to play with Roy Ayers and Lonnie Liston Smith after this, and Guillermo Franco. Very intense, and kind of, it's got a similar kind of, I played the title track called Atlantis. And if you know the Pharaoh Sanders track, Upper and Lower Egypt, it's got a similar kind of vibe to it. Great. I love this period of McCoy. I mean, basically all of these milestone albums are worth getting, I think.
I don't have any of them, but we stuck with McCoy Tyner in a different lineup, the classic Coltrane lineup of the mid-60s. Looking for something. It was quite. Those last two tracks have been quite intense, so I was looking to give ourselves a pause for breath. And John had very kindly given me this book actually, The House That Train Built by Ashley Kahn for my birthday earlier in the year. And over the summer I had a chance to really get into it and was inspired to really kind of dig a bit deeper into the Impulse catalogue and the Coltrane catalogue. And certainly I'm very unfamiliar with John Coltrane and Johnny Hartman, which is basically very similar to the Ballads album, but obviously with a vocalist. And it's great, really beautiful, and this is a lovely pressing.
Such a fruity voice.
Very fruity.
This is making a return appearance at one of our sessions. It appeared the first time a couple of years ago, I think it was. This is the Keon Harold album, which is called The Musician, and it's just a really good record, actually. I mean, I've been kind of listening to it consistently, really, for about a year, and it sounds great, actually. And I played the track Stay This Way, which features Bilal, and I think that was Bilal's singing was a kind of connection somehow over there. Yeah, Keon Harold's a trumpeter who plays on, you've probably got him on a lot of records if you've been buying anything from that kind of Robert Glasper-ish kind of part of the world, Chris Day part of the world. Yeah.
Definitely had a sort of slightly psychedelic
very much
mix to it, which led me to select this, which is one of several CDs. So you probably know I'm doing a weekly radio show, which is entailing me needing to keep up to date with more purchases, and I'm not always able to afford the vinyl, so I've been getting the odd CD. In fact, I was given this CD by Charles Stewart from Fish Police and Grace Jones MD fame, and this album is called Sex and Food, and I've got a feeling this guy is Australian, Ruben Nielsen, and this is not his first album. I'm not familiar with the band, but really great songs, fantastic production, real diversity of sonics and sound, and highly recommended, but actually possibly album of the year for me so far.
And playing at the Royal Albert Hall, which means he must have a following.
Yeah,
actually. So we were getting kind of slightly proggy influences going on here. So I went full Monty basically, and played King Crimson's Lizard. Played the track called Circus, and I used to have this record, and I sold it for some reason years and years and years ago. And I also sold Islands, which is my other really favourite King Crimson album. I really like this period. It's kind of almost trying to do too much here. They're trying to put everything but the kitchen sink in this record. But I have to say the new pressing sound, you can start to separate the sound out.
Really sounds incredible.
Yeah, so King Crimson, classic third album, and play the track Circus on here.
Yeah, and as that track was nearing its climax, it went quite Beatlesy, and got me pulling out the original pressing of the Beatles' Abbey Road, which my mum had actually back in 1969. And we listened to the medley that starts Because and then goes into You Never Give Me Your Money. And sounded absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it did sound amazing. Somebody who's appeared fairly regularly at our sessions, but not for a while, is Chocolate Genius. And this is an album came out 2 years ago. I didn't even know it had come out. Actually came out on a French label called No Format. And Chocolate Genius is hard to describe, really. I mean, I always kind of mentally think of him as being almost the male equivalent of Michel Ndegeocello. So they've got a similar kind of eclecticism about them. And this is, called Truth versus Beauty. Mostly solo, I think, actually. It's very hard to tell about. I think he's got a wonderful voice, really interesting lyrics, kind of somewhere, I mean, it's obviously soul influence, but also lots of influences from kind of experimental rock and so forth. Really, for me, a really good artist, actually, massively underrated, I think.
Absolutely.
So Chocolate Genius, Truth versus Beauty on No Format.
Right, I think something about the intimacy of the vocal led me to share some Elliott Smith, and I have to do a big shout out to Fred Big Star 1000 for turning me on to this album. This is the album XX0, and we listened to the track called Tomorrow Tomorrow. Yeah, definitely in some weird way it was also reminding me of Nick Drake, something about the kind of sadness actually in the voice, but really beautiful, lovely harmonies.
A bit of a sad life as well.
A bit of a sad life.
So we're moving in a kind of different direction to where we normally go, actually.
Yes.
Just been striking me that a lot of bands around these days seem to sound like Stereolab. And this is from their album Emperor. Which one is it? Emperor Tomato Ketchup, which is kind of the one with quite a lot of the Tortoise guys on the record as well, and played the first track, Metronomic Underground, so which is where they've been. So they in a way sound like Can on that track. So you've got people sounding like Stereo Lab who were sounding like Can. So we're getting a interesting stage of things.
They also were sounding well. I saw the band Mildlife last week in Ramsgate, who I know various people in the VC have been excited about, and I am as well. But they also now remind me of Stereolab and of Can.
Yeah.
Staying with interesting, distinctive vocals and productions, this is one of the two single CDs that Björk brought out in the early 90s of her track Isabel. This one actually features 4 completely different tracks, and we listened to I Go Humble, which I think is a collaboration with someone from LCD Sound System, but it sounded really great. Just sonically fantastic, actually.
There's a lot of stuff hiding in those, lots of Björk singles with masses of different mixes on, sound good. So also CD land here at the moment. Again, and somebody else, another band that a lot of people tend to sound like at the moment, Yola Tango, and this is from their album Summer Sun, and I played the track Don't Have to Be So Sad off that. I really like Yola Tango, got all their records I think actually, and a shout out to Roger Coleman. I know Roger's a Yola Tango fan as well.
Real nice kind of minimal production.
Very nice production, yeah, nice sound on this stuff.
Yeah, and then bang up to date with a brand new CD that actually turned up yesterday by Lewis Cole. This is on the Brainfeeder label. He's a drummer. He's also got a very similar falsetto vocal style to Thundercat, and obviously shares a record label. The album's called Time. We listened to a really kind of exciting track, is the only way I can describe it, called Real Life, which has a fantastic Brad Mehldau piano solo towards the end. But yeah, really interesting album. I only just got it yesterday, but it's definitely sounding very interesting.
Sounding good.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the connection was with this, but then went for maybe it was the kind of
maybe we had a break.
Might have had a break actually.
I don't know.
Latest in a series of remasters of Frank Zappa, Mother's Invention, is the new version of Burnt Weenie Sandwich. Sounding fantastic, actually. I mean, Bernie Grundman mastering job. Just always been one of my favourite of the first period of Frank's albums, this one. And most instrumental, this album. Great compositions, really interesting mixture of live and something's fallen out. Live and studio stuff. And then played the track ABC, I think it's called, actually, which is the last track on the record, which has got some great acoustic guitar playing from Frank.
I have found out I'm sort of seeking out interviews with Frank online at the moment. He seems to talk an awful lot of sense.
He's amazing and very intelligent kind of guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are great, and in the UK they're only costing about £15. These remasters, and they're coming in good vinyl, great mastering.
Yeah. Sort of vague connection was I'd been reading, I think, a review somewhere online where 10cc had been sort of put in a group alongside Steely Dan and Frank Zappa as being 3 very individual artists, actually.
Fair enough, really.
Yeah, which I thought actually was fair enough. I basically had been made aware that my favourite track from the J Dilla Donuts album was actually basically a sample of The Worst Band in the World by 10cc, which was a track I wasn't familiar with, and was pretty astounded to hear just how much of the track had been nicked, really. Yeah. But the production on this is absolutely out of this world, really fantastic, very cheap to find. This is the album Sheet Music, 10cc. Yeah, have a listen if you don't know them.
Now, talking of cheap to find, this is a bit of a bizarre story around this one. This is Alan White's album Ramshackled. Now, somebody who commented on the last video we did together, was the one before last on Mark's channel, on their video, the Renew VCer were talking about this record Ramshackled. And I thought, well, I really need to find this record and pick it up somewhere because it sounded kind of interesting. So I went out just normally to buy some milk or something, go to the post office, and it was sitting. This record was standing in the front of a charity shop, about a quarter of a mile away from where I lived, on its own, with no other records around it at all. So I had to buy it anyway. So it's Alan White, who's of course the drummer at that time from Yes, and his album Ramshackle, which is an incredibly eclectic record, all kinds of different. There's some absolutely terrible stuff on here, but also some really good stuff. And I played the track called Ooh Baby, I think it was called.
Really nice.
Which was really nice groove, actually. Yeah. So, yeah, worth picking up.
Yeah.
Especially if you only got it, I think I only paid about £1 for it in the charity shop.
This is a record I picked up in my local market, actually. It's a Gong remix album that I'd never come across before. I think with the hand of Steve Hillage and System 7 firmly at the till. And we listened to a mix by someone called Ken Ishii, a track called A Sprinkling of Clouds. Sounded really nice.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a number of tracks. There's a really nice Aubrey mix as well. So, yeah.
We were starting to get a bit dubby at this point.
Yes, that's right. That was electronic dub was coming through.
So went for not some electronic dub, I went for some old school dub style stuff, although this is not really a dub album. It's a kind of very odd record, Keith Hudson's record, Flesh of My Skin, Blood of My Blood, which is a kind of real, very eccentric kind of typical, I guess, of Keith Hudson. Actually, and played the track Blood of My Blood, which has has no drumming on it. Actually,
no drumming at all.
Stripped out, and very interesting record. Actually, very odd, but always worth picking up. I'm recently reissued on Basic Replay, which is German label, and also on Honest John's in the UK as well.
Noticing that it's on the back, John KPI and Bunny McKenzie, and Delroy Washington, all UK reggae artists. Actually.
That's right. Yeah.
But mixed in with some of the Jamaicans.
Yeah,
yeah,
including Santa,
yeah,
Pablo and stuff.
Doug from Canada had done a really nice VC video all about this band, the Viceroys, which I saw a few days ago, and that got me back listening to a fantastic tune off this album, which I believe they've covered a number of times. This is a real Roots Radix workout of My Mission is Impossible, featuring drums of Style Scott, actually called Stike Scott, I noticed in the back here, and Flabber Holt. I love these kind of three-part Jamaican vocal harmonies.
Beautiful.
Really just ethereal and actually spiritual reggae, I think. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Both of us remembering seeing the Roots Radix with Gregory Isaacs around this time. This fantastic little mini set at the beginning, which was just fantastic. Classic here. Scratching Company, Lee Perry, Upsetters Chapter 1, and played the track When You'll Come, which is, this is just a great song, actually, and sung by somebody called Devon Iron, who I've never seen on any other record. I kind of think, wondering whether it really is sung by somebody called Devon Iron, or whether that's a pseudonym for somebody.
Could be.
But actually, I think this is probably one of the best Lee Perry albums.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant.
Really fantastic.
Yeah. And then we had more Lee Perry with a sort of EP that came out on the Black Art label as a 45. We listened to the track Disco Devil, which actually has Lee Perry himself on the lead vocal, and which was the rhythm track was, what would you say, Croaking Lizard?
Yeah.
A very prominent guiro, which is the scratch sort of scraping instrument that you use in percussion, was absolutely the main featured sound on this.
It became more and more main as the track went on.
Yes, but great actually. All four tracks are really good and a very sort of heavy classic Lee Perry production.
Now, this might have seemed to be a radical left turn to play this record, but this is I think I've played her stuff before in a session, but I'm kind of big Lucinda Williams fan. I think she's great actually, and her recent stuff with Charles Lloyd's been amazing. But this is her last but one album, which is The Ghosts of Highway 20, which I've been listening to for probably a couple of years actually. And then I just suddenly noticed the last track had a very different sound to it to the rest of the album. The whole album's got Bill Frisell on it, but the drummer is Santa Davis, of course, who's in fact on that Keith Hudson record, and also it's got Raz Michael singing kind of singing background vocals on it. And this is a very long if you can imagine a kind of country dub track, it's almost what
Yeah.
it sounds like actually. There's
Yeah.
some incredibly atmospheric guitar playing by Bill Frisell on there, and some, as usual, well-worn vocals from Lucinda Williams on there as well.
Extremely.
But this is a great album. This one, and the previous one were very good records, and I do recommend the Charles Lloyd one as well. Charles Lloyd and the Marvels,
which
has just come out.
just come out, right?
Yeah, which my copy hasn't arrived yet.
So a few weeks back on the radio show, I'd actually played. I think I meant to play Cajun Moon, and I ended up playing Crying by J.J. Cale, and it sounded absolutely right in the show, and just reminded me what a great, again, real minimal stuff, and what a great artist J.J. Cale was. Particularly, there was a run of about three or four albums.
More than that, even the ones later are really good actually.
Yeah,
Right into I mean, he was making good stuff right into the 80s.
yeah.
Actually.
We were particularly impressed by the name of the electric keyboard player on this album, Beagle Cruiser.
Beagle Cruiser.
Alongside Red Spivvy on the piano.
I think Beagle Cruiser is probably illegal. Actually. I don't know. Great guitar playing in mind. I think for the next one, this is Carla Bley's Dinner Music, which was her album she made with the band who was Stuff at the time, which were kind of major recording artists, but also session musicians, and has incredible. Eric Gale played the track Ida Lupino, which I've got lots and lots of different versions of. This has got a great Eric Gale guitar solo, which goes through the whole track, basically. Yeah, really nice album from probably from 72 or something like that. 77, actually, much later than that. And yeah, everything, the Stuff, when they turned up in the studio to play with, didn't actually know who Carla Bley was. They thought she was a singer. But so they got a bit of a shock, I think, when they got these incredibly idiosyncratic charts to play, I think. But yeah, big Carla Bley fan. Love her stuff.
And wow, maybe we must have had a break. I can't understand how we could have come back with Beck after that. I think, but anyway, we did. We came back with from Sea Change, again the sonics of the track 2, Paper Tiger. Some amazing kind of I don't know, Indian style strings going on. Really, really beautiful. Yeah, great album.
Forget how good he is, Beck. Sometimes actually. Kind of take people like him for granted.
Yeah, and such an original character, really. Original sound.
Went for some different kind of. I mean, that was sonically interesting. This is also a very sonically interesting record, but for completely different reasons, really. I mean, it was recorded. It's a Joe Henry album called. I can't remember what it's called. Reverie. That's right. That's second to last out, actually, on Anti Records. Joe Henry's a producer and solo artist. He produced, interestingly enough, he produced Chaz and Dave and Michel and Cello back to back, which was a pretty old one. And played the track called Sticks and Stones, which is and basically he recorded this record and left the studio doors open. So when you listen to it on headphones, you've got a very, very raw in the room sound, but also you can hear birds singing outside, you can hear dogs barking, you can hear cars driving past. Very atmospheric record. I love his stuff actually. I've got a lot of his music. Great producer and really good artist as well.
Was Bill Frisell on that?
No.
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 Okay. But somehow we've moved to Bill Frisell. Been featured on a few tracks. This is his latest album, Music Is. Very excited that John has got tickets for us both to go and see him in November in the UK, doing a rare solo gig. And one of my favourite tracks on this album is called Ron Carter. Is that an old track of his?
It's an old track, yeah. They're all, in fact, all the tracks
Really
are things
nice.
he's recorded before, so they're all his own.
I mean, just the sort of the range of sounds that he gets out of his guitar, and also you can't believe it's just one player. Really amazing.
We've got a little warning sign up on the screen there, something.
It's something's quite unexpected, but I don't think we need to worry.
Okay. Fine. From Bill Frisell to another guitarist, a UK guitarist, Bert Jansch. And this is, we've had Bert, I think, at sessions before.
Oh, we have, yeah.
This is from the album Avocet, which is based around, each track has got a bird name. And it came out, really nice edition a couple of years ago on Earth Records. This was very rare before, very hard to find. Little band with Danny Thompson and Martin Jenkins on violin, flute and cello. Danny Thompson's fantastic on this record.
Beautiful.
I mean, really just sounding great, actually. Very nice sounding record. I got mine from Bandcamp, actually, pretty reasonable price as well.
Well, I actually ended up buying one live during the session on eBay at a very, very cheap price.
A great guitarist, worth getting.
Yeah, I think something about that sort of slightly pastorally sound maybe got me thinking of Oregon, who I don't think we featured in a session before, but this took us down a nice little rabbit hole for the next few tunes. I mean, actually, they really do sound so original. Such an interesting blend of musicians with, you know, sort of embracing instrumentation and sounds from around the world, but without it sounding cliched. They sort of came up with their own kind of sound. And really lovely. We listened to a track called Dance to the Morning Star.
Keeping with the same kind of feeling of kind of cross-cultural stuff that kind of works and isn't too cheesy, really, which is played a track from the Sultan's Picnic, which is an album by Rabi Abu. I'm trying to get this right, reflecting right. There you go. Rabi Abu Khalil, who's a Lebanese oud player, who's made a whole string of albums on Enja and other labels as well. Really interesting kind of musician, amazing lineup on this. This includes Howard Levy on harmonica, Kenny Wheeler, who's a bit of a favourite of ours, on trumpet, Charlie Mariano on alto sax, Steve Swallow, Michel Godard on tuba, Mark Nusef on drums, and Milton Cardona on congas, as well as his own frame drum player. Really interesting composition, kind of quite influenced by Ornette Coleman, I think, actually, his compositions. They've got that kind of... But it works, actually, and there kind of should be an absolute dog's breakfast, but works very well instead. So recommend his records. They are available on vinyl, but they're incredibly expensive on vinyl. Rabi Abu Khalil.
Next up, we had Alain Peters, Rest La Maloya, and definitely somebody who I discovered via the VC, and definitely an album I would never have picked up on the strength of its cover, I have to say. But this is a compilation of many of his recordings over the 70s, and again, just a real translator and carrier of really interesting sounds and instrumentation, and just really works. But a very kind of haunting album, and I really highly recommend. His
vocal style really reminds me of something else, but I can't remember the place who it was. So thinking of kind of world fusionists, I guess, as well. I mean, the one who's obviously got connections back to Oregon and other people as well is Don Cherry, and this is from Relativity Suite, which was one of his albums he made with the Jazz Composers Orchestra, and played the track called The Queen of Taunting Lake on here, which has got some very nice ching playing on it, and also a little bit of a trumpet coda from very unusual shaped track, actually.
Very unusual. And just as it gets going, it suddenly ends.
Yeah, it stops as well. But this is a nice record. Good period for Don, this period, I think. Actually made some great stuff.
We were heading towards the end of the session, and it felt the right moment to drop in Collagically Speaking, which is a band which, called Reflect and Respond equals Now, features Robert Glasper, Terrace Martin, Christian Scott, Derek Hodge, Taylor McFerrin, Justin Tyson. So a bit of a who's who of contemporary, not that young anymore, I guess, jazz players in the States. But actually really, really works. We listened to the last track, which is called Been On My Mind, and most of the tracks feature a guest artist as well. So, very nice thing on the back. We want to make art that means something and moves something, a sound that reflects us and our world, that responds to all that we have seen and all that we want to see. We're here to make art and make change, to carry the torch for the ancestors and for the future. This is our time to tell our truth.
Very good.
Yeah, good album.
Somebody else definitely reflecting her world was Beyonce with Lemonade, and showed this many times before, but it's just such a great record, actually.
It is.
It's just worth reminding yourself that, actually, what a really, really consistently good record. I played the track All Right off here, which is one of my favourites. In fact, all tracks are my favourites, actually. Just a real classic, I think, of this decade. This sort of nice.
And then,
Definitely
Waltz for Debbie.
Yeah.
We listened to Some Other Time, the absolutely exquisite interplay between Bill Evans piano, Scott LaFaro bass, Paul Motion on the drums. Just a classic record. With bizarrely sort of the audience as the fourth performer somehow, just busy tucking into their dinner, I think.
Yeah.
Chinking their glasses. But yeah, really lovely record.
Paul Motion's playing on that. It's just, that track is amazing. He implies rhythm without really doing it at all, actually. Absolutely classic stuff. Keeping in the wind down zone, been getting into Johnny Smith recently, who's also the subject of Bill Frisell's next album that's coming out with Mary Alverson, which is coming out very soon. Johnny Smith, a guitarist, kind of somewhere almost between kind of country styling and surf music and also jazz, actually. Played the track Stars Fell on Alabama, which has always been one of my favourite tunes off this album, which is called Moonlight in Vermont. Very kind of gentle, classic kind of jazz guitar playing, really.
I can barely remember you playing that, which is interesting. Which actually probably
it was so laid back. It's probably why our first attempt to record this session didn't work very well.
We also suddenly realised that because we've not been on together for 2 months, we had never really said anything about this very sad passing of Aretha Franklin. And so we wanted both to play a track in tribute to Aretha, and I went for the track Daydreaming from the Young Gifted and Black Atlantic period album, which is really fantastic, with Donny Hathaway on the keys, and Cornell Dupree and Bernard Purdie and Chuck Rainey, just amazing.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And I went for Aretha singing Bobby Womack, and went for the track I'm in Love, which is off the album to Let Me In Your Life, which was one of her mid-70s. Always felt that some of these mid-70s records are much underrated, actually. Some good stuff on them. And again we have a band, we have Donny Hathaway on there, but also, interestingly, Stanley Clarke on bass on this track. I'm in Love, great Bobby song. Also Wilson Pickett did a version of it as well, which was pretty good. Yeah, so Aretha.
And there we are. Well, that's a much better take.
Much better take.
Do tune into the All Points radio show. There's about 30-something shows. I'll stick a link underneath the video. And I hope everybody is well. Yeah. Hanging in there. Yeah. Listening to music, sharing. Yeah, music seems to be very important at the moment. It does. We're going to go off and check out a new record shop in a second. So see you next time. Best wishes to everyone. Bye. Take care.